All right, I now have the pleasure today of introducing our speaker, Dr. Nerissa Draeger. Dr. Nerissa Draeger is a technology strategist at Lam Research. She guides cutting-edge research to make industry impact as part of the strategy and innovation team and the office of the CTO. As Director of Global University Engagements, she enables innovative solutions for semiconductor fabrication through external research collaborations and drives academic partnerships to create diversity in Lam's technology and talent pipelines. Prior to this role, Dr. Draeger managed various programs at Lam Research on advanced materials and processes, emerging electronic devices, and strategic business and intellectual property development. Dr. Draeger has over 20 years of experience in thin film deposition and surface science and has authored over 30 patents and numerous technical publications. She earned her Ph.D. in material science and engineering from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, where she received the department's 2020 Alumni Loyalty Award, and her B.S.E. of engineering from the University of Michigan. She is a voracious reader and member of a book club that has been together for over 2 decades, and she also enjoys long-distance trekking. With that, please join me in welcoming Nerissa.
Okay, there we go. All right. Well, thank you so much for the invitation. It is great to be here and in person as well. And welcome to everybody who's listening online who wasn't able to be here in person. But I've really been looking forward to speaking to all of you today. You know, your industry and the end product is critical when the president holds it up and says that it's essential infrastructure for the nation. And the demand for semiconductors is only going to continue to go up from here. And the headlines over the last year and a half have really outlined how important semiconductors and computer chips are for many very different industries and consumer products, from automotives and automotive lines being idled for lack of $18 worth of chips that they require, to appliances which are back ordered, to things like GPUs for computers. So it's not a surprise. Oh, let me just explain that when you hear of all these chip shortages, the company I work for, Lam Research, is connected because every chip in about every electronic today has been processed using at least one Lam equipment, one tool in the manufacturing line. We make the tools, an example shown here on the left, that go into fabrication facilities for our customers such as Intel, TSMC, Samsung, that are used to make these chips. So it wouldn't be a surprise to hear that in our internal executive leadership training program, one of the aspects of the program is doing a business analysis report. So not surprising that one of the reports would be looking at the impact of this product demand ramp to overcome the chip shortages we have now on our manufacturing workforce. What might have been a little more surprising is who was on the program team. Only one person that works in manufacturing. Someone from the office of the CTO, that was me. The chief information security officer, somebody from global accounts team and operations, and folks from technical directors and managers in the product group. And that's because at Lam, we are expected to be agile. We are expected to use different perspectives and different specialties to contribute overall to the business of the company. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, was just kind of my curiosity-driven career and how agility can create opportunities. And I mean agility not just in the technical sense of the word. When you think of agility, maybe you think of a startup company that doesn't succeed at their first approach, so they pivot to something else, but agility in terms of personal and professional development as well. I think the idea of a career ladder is kind of a historical analogy that doesn't apply anymore. You know, careers aren't straight lines. I think it's a little more like, you know, the children's game Chutes and Ladders, where there's ups and there's downs and there's periods that really look and feel like a down, but they're leading you to an even bigger boost on a larger ladder. And you don't have any real long-term visibility to maybe where you're going. It's not always a clear path. So to talk about my career journey, then I can't say it's not a straight line and then use a straight timeline to talk about my journey. So I'm making it a curve. I started undergraduate degree, University of Michigan. I'm a Michigan native, took advantage of that in-state tuition at a great school in material science and engineering. And as an undergrad, I did 3 years of internships at Alcoa's R&D facility outside of Pittsburgh. And that was the first time that I saw, okay, what does it look like to actually practice as an engineer? You know, what does an engineer do in industry? And that was a great experience. I strongly encourage people to do internships at some point during their career, undergrad or graduate, to just get that perspective of what it looks like from a practicing engineer. And it was my coworkers and managers in that job that also encouraged me to go on to graduate school, because you know what they said at the time, and which I have found to be true, is it gave more possibilities. You have more options and different career paths with a graduate degree than just with a bachelor's. So I came here, University of Illinois, continuing in material science and engineering to get my PhD, specifically focusing on thin film deposition of electronic materials. So that led to my first job as a process engineer at a company called Novella Systems and their corporate R&D group. And when you're in R&D, you're kind of part of this pipeline of development. It starts with an idea that's really an initial feasibility. Can we make it work? How does it work? If it succeeds, you go into new product development. If that succeeds, then you go into a customer evaluation, and hopefully the tool goes into full production at one of our customers. And I cycled through that about 4 times, you know, different projects, different products, because once something is released, then I go on. And then I did something completely different. And I'll talk a little more about this, you know, later on, but I went into intellectual property strategic business development. So this was the first time that I started working on the business strategy and operations side of thing. It was not a technical role. But from there, I went back into another technical position, managing a team in a new product development organization. And then the company was acquired by Lam Research, where I still am today. I moved back into their corporate R&D group, now as a director, leading programs. And from there, when the CTO created this new group called Strategy and Innovation, which is looking at how the company leading and supporting how we innovate, as a director of university engagements, was how do we engage with universities to bring new technologies into the company. And I am also serving on a couple of boards of directors now as well. So looking back, in hindsight is always kind of 2020, you can look back with much greater clarity over what got you to where you are now than you can look forward. You know, I would kind of break my journey into maybe 3 different phases. So the initial phase is really about education and training. This is where I started exploring kind of my core skills of engineering in undergrad and grad school. You focus with much greater depth in a particular area of expertise. And that led to what I'd call kind of my initial phase of practicing engineering and professional development. So in R&D, where I would go through these cycles of take an idea from feasibility, hope it goes to new product development, and sometimes projects fail. Then when you're in R&D, there's inevitable failures, because if, you know, the adage is kind of, if you're not failing, you're not trying enough new ideas. You're not taking enough risk and new advancements. So if something failed, it gets put on a shelf. Sometimes technologies get taken back off the shelf later down the road. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just collect dust. But I would go on to a new project. And if something succeeded, if it went on and it met the customer specifications, it goes into production, it's being used by TSMC to produce, you know, the latest chips in your iPhone, I would still go on to a new project, because there would be a customer account team that would take over ownership of that tool once it's in full production. And I really liked staying on the initial feasibility and research development side of things. You know, I'm curious about, the reason I got into engineering is because I'm curious about how things work and how do we make them work better. So that was the goal of the R&D group, is I would get to start a new project. It would be something, potentially very different. And this is where I really started learning agility skills and what the company wanted for agility and what it could offer for a career. And that not all of these were in my area of specialization, because the skills that you're learning as an engineer, many of these are transferable. I mean, it's not vastly different. These are all materials processing products that I was working on for the semiconductor industry. But some of them maybe are using wet chemistry, some are using dry chemistries. And so it was an opportunity to, and it's great to be able to follow Catherine Ford because she brought up a lot of the themes that I'm going to talk about too. It's an opportunity to be ready and to use your skills in new ways. So, I would really say that kind of early time in R&D is where I started kind of forming and realizing the importance of having agility. And then moving on to a strategic business development role and intellectual was a big jump in agility. And at the time that I decided to make that move, it was because I had a sponsor in the company who said, we're forming this new group. Would you like to be a part of it? There were a lot of people that cautioned me against that move. Oh, it's not a technical role. Why wouldn't you stay as an engineer? You got a Ph.D. in engineering. Don't you want to do engineering? You'll have a hard time moving back into technology again. And I considered this, but again, I was curious because it was a new aspect of how do we develop something. Now I'm not looking at the fundamental technology or the engineering principles, but how do we as a company make a business decision to go into a new technology? And how do we evaluate that new technology? Where are its risks? What are its possible revenue rewards? How does it match with our core skills as a company? Where do we need to get new skills into the company, and analyzing those types of problems? And then from the intellectual property perspective, I had never done anything with law. So I had no knowledge of this going in, but they trained us as patent scientists essentially in the company. And when you're in industry, you don't publish in journals the way you do in academia for many industries. And the semiconductor industry in particular does not do a lot of publication just because of the proprietary nature of the work. But patents are in essence how we publish, and it's a way to protect the intellectual property assets of the company. So, this was really the first time that I looked at it from a business perspective, not from the engineering perspective. And it was a great experience and I learned a ton, but I did go back into a technical position. So there's that agility between kind of moving between the technology, between the business, back to the technology again. And this time managing a team, so building on skills over not just my own activities, but other people's activities to kind of a greater goal. And then in the third phase of what I see my career is really more about exhibiting leadership and having a broader impact. So moving into a director position back in the office of the CTO now with Lam Research, is an opportunity to really look forward, because again, I'm looking forward at new technologies that are coming down the pipeline and saying, what do we have to be able to do to offer a product to our customers so they can solve the solutions for that? And in the group I'm in now, that really kind of takes all these different aspects from roles that I've had before and sort of puts them together, because it's looking at both the technology, innovation, and the strategy of the company. And we manage kind of what I refer to as the innovation infrastructure of the company. If you think of things like, the conference center, the roads that got us here, the electricity powering the building is the infrastructure of the community and the campus. This group runs the programs and the events that enable all of the engineers and technologists in the company to be able to continue innovating. So it's really more on the innovation management side. And I specifically am looking at open innovation. How do we innovate outside of the company? We have R&D groups inside of the company that take ideas and push them forward to products. But just, there's 16,000 employees in the company, and there is no way all the good ideas in the world are inside our walls. No. So we do a lot of innovation outside the company called open innovation. I particularly lead our research collaborations with universities And I have a colleague that leads a tech scouting program that works with startups and small businesses. And this is where I can have a lot broader impact. If I were going to continue in a technical role as a practicing engineer or manager of a team, I would be working in my core area of expertise in film deposition of electronic materials. And I love that. It is near and dear to my heart still. But as director in this group, I can oversee all of the technical areas of the company. Now, I don't know a great deal about all of them, but we have subject matter experts in the company that do. They lead the technical aspects of programs. So by offering these programs and supporting them to engineers, I am able to help them be successful and the company be successful. And these same skills that I use inside the company around the strategy and the business are very transferable outside of the company as well. So I'm on board of directors now for a couple of nonprofit organizations. The first one, UIDP, came out of the National Academy of Sciences. It's an organization that looks at how do cross institutions, industry to university and government agencies all collaborate together, and how can we improve that collaboration process. And I also just joined the board of directors of the Materials Research Society, which is the professional association of materials engineers. And it's amazing how much what I learned when I was first doing that strategic business development and intellectual property development role applies in what I do now. You know, I never would have anticipated that. But that was a really good move at the time because it kind of built my interest in the skills I have in this space where all of it comes together with the technology now. So that kind of agility is really led me to where I am today. And I'm not telling you all this to make, to portray myself as some uniquely skilled individual. I am not a unicorn. These are all learned skills. You can all learn them too if there's something that is of interest to you. So let me switch to kind of talking about I and T-shaped people. I don't mean Illinois versus Tennessee. The I, there's just a vertical bar. It's not the line in black eye, but think of that as like your depth of your core skill, what you're majoring in right now, what your thesis is about. That's kind of your expertise that you're building a lot of depth in. And then the T that goes on top, that top bar, is a breadth of other skills and perspectives. Those can be other technical skills. They can be soft skills, leadership management skills. There was a nice article by Forbes, it's over a decade old now, that talked about people that build up these T-shaped skills, T-shaped individuals and behaviors are able to link up different experiences and perspectives. And people that can do that then are able to make connections that you wouldn't be able to make if you only had the I, only the expertise in your one area. And that can lead to more extraordinary ideas. And just, this really is kind of core at a lot of the research and headlines you may have read about how more diverse teams lead to better results, lead to more ideas, they lead to better business performance. This is one of the heart of really diversity. It's people with different perspectives and experiences coming with different points of view. And you yourself as an individual can also gather a depth of experiences and perspectives as well that just lead to more ideas. So gathering those and being able to execute on them when needed is kind of one example of agility. So I collected a list of soft skills. This actually comes out of our internal training program on what kind of soft skills are important as an engineering career, and really any career. This isn't particular to the engineering. They kind of start with sort of the skills you'll develop maybe as a brand new engineer in the industry, sort of moving up as you become more involved in management and leadership. Agility is one. It's things like just having a growth mindset. It's being able to persuade people, to be able to influence others' decisions, to be able to really formulate your ideas and be able to kind of defend your ideas. Risk management, how do you make decisions when there's still risk? How do you problem solve and then getting up to the point that how do you build effective teams? Do you set a vision and execute on organizational change? It kind of looks like an overwhelming list. Not everybody is going to feel passionate around all of these. Not everybody is going to have skills in all of these. This isn't a list of everything you have to do. This is a list of just to kind of give you an idea of what skills are valued, in the industry and with the career. And ways to go about getting these is, a lot of companies will have training programs internally. Workshops like this where you hear from different people who've kind of been through this process themselves and what they've learned from the experience and where they found value talking to others, like in the weSTEM organization where you all connect, are great ways to go about building soft skills. And making these into leadership careers is really about creating positive change. This is positive change in terms of company performance, new products, new offerings, and succeeding in doing those well, executing technically on those. It's about developing yourself and others as you begin to manage teams. About motivating and inspiring people to achieve their goals. The inspiration is really important. And then just harnessing the potential of all these inclusive teams. So this is a picture of our CTO, Rick Gaccio, and he's on stage in our engineering and technology conference, an annual internal flagship conference for our company. He's standing in front of these big foam letters that says innovate. And you think most people expected him to get up on stage and talk about our technology. What is the tech vision for the company? Where are we going in the future? And he did that, but he also said, technical skills are the entry ticket to your career at the company, but soft skills are what are important for success. You have to be able to build on those technical skills, communicate them to others, lead and inspire others to achieve them. And agility is so important to the company that was just added to our core values last year. We've had the others for quite a long time. And agility is something the company realized that we need more people to emphasize and to practice. So coming back to that leadership program report, hopefully now kind of doesn't seem as surprising that the team that is looking at manufacturing workforce is not part of manufacturing, that the company was gathering all these different diverse perspectives because they'll have a different view on what potential solutions might be to the challenge of a really fast industry ramp during chip shortage. I've left plenty of time because I wanted you all to ask questions and to make this interactive. So let me just kind of say in summary, some of the lessons that I have learned from my career and experiences. One is to be curious and continue learning. Your education does not finish with your degree. Technologies change, you'll gather new interests. So, have that growth mindset. You're not done. You're done with the prescriptive course-based, thesis-based portion of your education. But, a career in science and technologies is a lifelong educational experience. Also be open to new opportunities and being able to take risk. And this one is kind of a little more focused on agility, and that, opportunities kind of favor the prepared mind. So you've had your career, you've learned a lot. When you spot a new opportunity, even if it seems risky, move forward with it. You are always going to have to make technical decisions and career decisions, personal decisions without all of the information. You never have everything you need to really make a fully informed decision when you're out in the real world. So, you're going to have to be comfortable with a little bit of risk to that, and that's okay. I would say to seek advice from wise and inspiring people. This is finding mentors and sponsors wherever they are in their life. It could be somebody that you think is a role model of potentially a career or a role that you would want to have. It could be somebody that's in the role you want now. Bill Nye says that everybody you meet knows something that you don't, which means that there's something to learn from everybody on this one. I would also say share your skills and learn from others. It works in both directions. This is really the core of collaboration and teamwork. You have something that they don't know, so be generous with your information and your abilities, and likewise learn from them as well. And this is where feedback is also important, as Catherine mentioned, is learning from them, learning from what they know of you and your abilities. It's a great exchange when you have a team that works really well together with trust and mutual respect. And lastly, enjoy what you do and trust your instincts. Where you have passion and enthusiasm and things that you enjoy, and that will change over time. Like I said, kind of in reference to the no longer a career ladder, but the chutes and ladders game, you know, you don't know where this is going to go. But if you make career decisions and decisions in your life about where you think you're going to enjoy something, then that's a smart decision. You don't have to have all the answers or trust that you know what the outcome is going to be, as long as you enjoy the route that you're going down. So I'm glad to be able to just kind of share my perspective. Great, hands with questions already. Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you so much for the talk. I have a two-part question.
Mhm.
You briefly touched on this. I want to know, how do you identify opportunities where these are beyond your current skills and that will probably be a new growth in your professional career? And how do you overcome fears of not being able to do that well, and also fear that you would be potentially an imposter in that?
Yeah, that is a great question, because I will guarantee that. Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So the question is, how do you identify new opportunities that might be really, you know, kind of outside of what you've done before? And how do you, I guess to paraphrase you, how do you know if that's something that you kind of want to take on, if you have a little bit of the imposter syndrome, that's not something you have an ability at? In imposter syndrome, I would guarantee that everybody in this room has felt imposter syndrome at some point in their life. Absolutely. Even still, as I take on new roles and do new things in my career, I may feel imposter syndrome about this. Wow, am I really ready for this? Do I deserve this over all these other smart and amazing people that might have been interested in the role? So one is to have confidence, not just in what you know already, because that's where you maybe feel a limitation. I don't know how to do this new role because it's a stretch goal for me. It's something different from what I've done before. But have confidence in your ability to learn, to be agile, take what you know already, apply it to a new area. And be honest and open with the other people that will be either managing you or part of the team. It's like, I don't have expertise in this area. What does the training program or the educational program look like to bring me up to speed on this? You don't have to pretend that you know everything. Questions, being curious is the way to learn, and to be open that this is where I need to have learning development. This is where I think my skills could be transferable and apply. I don't know if that kind of helps to answer that aspect of it for you. And in terms of kind of identifying opportunities and looking, it helps if you can kind of have some self-reflection as to what excites you. And it might not just be excitement about a role, but it's aspects of the role. You find that you really like engaging with customers in negotiation, or you find that you really like mentoring and managing people. Those are kind of traits and skills where you can take those aspects and make those more of a core part of a role, or look for a role that maybe involves more of those. And in the introduction this morning, the woman who talked about she didn't want to be an academic in the sense of a professor, but she knew she wanted to work in the staff administration and apply diversity and inclusion skills. I think that's one way of seeing kind of what's a core aspect of what you enjoy doing and taking it to a new area. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Can I ask a tiny follow-up to that? in order to be a key individual and to get all these career opportunities, which sort of broaden your career profile, I want to ask if there are as many opportunities available to get skills which you don't have. Like sometimes the other person might be like, you don't fit the role, you don't have that sort of training program to train you. And I just want to know, how is that possible?
Sure, you can look for those skills or build those skills often in other areas of your life. So, participating in volunteering or, the committee of weSTEM, of grad SWE is a great way to build leadership and management skills. And that will apply to a job. Being part of, say, your professional society, whether it's like an MRS or American Physics Society, American Chemical Society, volunteering through local chapters or other ways in the organization is another way. It's a great way to network too, but it's a great way to build those kinds of skills. If there's a particular training program you're interested in that, you're in a job and it just doesn't offer that, you could look externally. Most companies these days have educational reimbursement programs. So you can, if you want to, get more into the business operations, you can take finance courses. Lots of people go back for MBAs, so it doesn't have to be a full-scale degree. It can be just programs or certificates, or even just, symposiums and workshops around the skill. So, don't be limited by where you are, but there's other ways to kind of get involved and build these skills that then you can highlight to say, I may not have the educational experience or practicing experience in a career for this, but look at all these other things that I have done that have built the same skills you're looking for in that role.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And then you can be next. I'll answer yours first.
Also, thank you for your talk and all the advice you've given so far. So I have a similar question, just kind of on the other side. Once you've acquired like these opportunities that might be a step away from the sort of technical, like maybe traditional engineering work into something like your current role, once you've acquired those opportunities, do you ever feel like a sense of regret for stepping away from the technical side, or any sort of like doubt on that decision? And how, like now in hindsight, how would you recommend like navigating that?
Good question. And the answer is yes. Sometimes I think, wow, what could have I done if I stayed purely technical roles the entire time? There's no one right career path, for me or probably for any of you. I probably could have done that and had a really rewarding career as well. So I don't think there's right and wrong answers. If my regrets were something that I felt stayed ever present, or I felt like they were building, then I would take that as a sign that, what, I miss it. I'm continuing to miss it. Maybe I do for my next move want to go back into technical position. And I do feel like that's still an opportunity. Once we're on what looks like a kind of a clear path, it doesn't mean we have to stay there. So yes, in my case, I found that I really enjoy creating and building these large scale kind of programs and opportunities to help others innovate. So, even though there's times and there's aspects I miss about the technology, I really like what I'm doing now. So it's not an overwhelming mess, but it's important to pay attention to those kind of cues in yourself. And you had a question.
Yeah. Thank you again. Super excited for your discussion. I was just wondering if you think that there's any concern about having too much breadth and not enough expertise.
Yes, I think that's a very good question. I'm sorry, I haven't been repeating all of these, but if there's a concern over having too much breadth and not enough expertise, yes, you don't want to have such a kind of shallow understanding of so many fields and no depth in anything. I mean, an ideal stellar unicorn employee would just be a big solid square. They have breadth and they have depth and everything. And there are probably those people out there. Don't compare yourself to them. That is not an expectation. So yeah, and maybe you're no longer a T, you're hybriding into, I don't know, a theta or some other imaginary letter that has multiple kind of pillars of the I. Yeah, I think that is a concern. So you know, that's what about getting the graduate degree is that you are showing that you have a depth in what you're going to get your degree in, what you know, work on for your thesis. So that's kind of what our CTO was talking about. That's an entry ticket. You have to prove that you have that technical capability and depth. You can't have a successful career and not have that as a basis. So, and then I think, you know, another way to kind of address that is don't aim for so many diverse skills and experiences or areas of focus that you spread yourself too thin. It's, you know, that's often in business referred to as kind of a peanut butter approach to R&D. It's like, we're going to work in all these areas and you spread the peanut butter on the sandwich bread so thin that, you know, it's not effective anymore. So, you know, focus on a few areas. And when you build sufficient expertise in those areas, and that's where feedback is very important to not just your own, you know, self-understanding of what you think your expertise level is, but ask it from others that you trust of their opinion, you know, where they think you have good skills, where you still need to build more. And then you can keep building it out from there, as opposed to trying to do, you know, so many things all at once.
Can I ask a follow-up? Especially like given how far like technology and stuff, a lot of things, even in academia today, are super interdisciplinary.
Yes.
And so I was just wondering if you had any advice then in a very like interdisciplinary world, like for, you know, finding an area for expertise.
You know, yeah, and I think the interdisciplinary approach to education degrees is great because it's already building in some of that kind of diverse experience into the degree itself. You know, but I would say it's still kind of a core skill. And if you're pursuing, you know, if you're in graduate school, then that's already a direction you're going because, you know, the thesis forces you to have an area of expertise. So even within kind of an interdisciplinary field, you're probably choosing, you know, sort of a sub-focus or a specialization area on that. So, you know, I do think having that kind of focus and specialization is where you can sort of start to carve out your niche technically. You know, so I don't know if I'm exactly addressing your question on that, but.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yes, you in the front row and then I'll move back. Okay, sorry. You know, I have a table later today, so if you have more questions, feel free to join the table and ask them then. Go ahead with your question, Marilyn.
So after getting the Ph.D. degree and looking for jobs, are there any cues or features you're looking in a company or in the industry or in the job you're looking for that it's a place where you can grow into other areas? Like if this is something a person is interested in, how do you, in interviews, like how do you look for that? Like a place where you can actually grow up in other areas outside your field?
That's a good question. So to repeat, how do you look when you're interviewing and considering companies for a career? How do you know if there's going to be those opportunities to grow and expand yourself, you know, beyond where you are at right at the moment? You know, and I would say this really gets around the culture of a company, and it's important to ask those questions during the interview process. Remember, interviews are both ways. They're interviewing you and you are interviewing them. So, you know, what is your training program like? How do people develop new skills in the company? Do people move between different roles? Do you promote primarily from within or external? You know, those are all great interview questions to ask a company. It shows that you're thinking about your career and your development, which is a quality that we want people to have in a company. You know, and they're all valid questions. If anybody reacts negatively to those, I would take that as kind of a red flag on the company. So, and I guess we are probably at time then. So.